So, Silva, we'll start with you. You've been involved in electric racing since 2009, even before the start of Formula E, and you were part of the founding team of Envision Racing. Envision Racing is committed to use the technology and the platform not only to compete on track, but also for climate change activism. Could you explain a bit about how you go about that and how you're trying to accelerate the transition to e-mobility and a net zero carbon future?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. I think we'll touch on it. Formally is mostly about two things, right? The first pillar is technology innovation, which we'll talk about, and the technology in this car that will trickle down to road cars. But it's also about getting people excited about e-mobility and the overall ecosystem around it. So, Envision, we don't make electric cars, but we make everything else around it. We generate the renewable energy, we store it through batteries, we distribute it to grids, and ultimately it goes to the car. So I think what we are realizing over many years of touring the world is that there's still a lot of work to do to get people excited and get people to understand that full electric mobility is actually better in every way compared to what we are doing now. So it's using the platform of Formula E, not only for the technology, but using it as using the sports and the passion element of the sport to get people engaged and excited.
Great, thank you. Alberto, you have a background working in Formula 1 and GP2 before you, together with Alejandro Agag, founded Formula E in 2012. Here we are for the first time in India. So do you want to explain a bit about how we got here and how that fits into what Formula E is trying to do internationally?
So good morning, everyone. Pleasure and an honor to be here in India. I think Sujay briefly spoke about it when we first met something like 1.5 years ago. There was a will from the Telangana government to host a Formula event. Obviously, we were attracted by this city. The first time I came here was 1 year ago, and as soon as I literally landed, I remember to be called into a meeting, and on that meeting there were already like 25 journalists, and we were actually announcing the Formula race. His Honorable Minister K.T.R. he has been passionate about bringing Formula E here, and today we're only 2.5 days away from the race, and super excited, and the first time that we're ever going to be racing here in India, and can't wait for it, frankly.
Great. I should say as well, if there are any questions from the audience, we have 10 minutes at the end, so we can sit and try and take some questions. So moving on a bit more on the technologies you mentioned earlier, Silva. How do you evaluate the current situation around battery development in EVs? What innovations still needed to make a full e-mobility transition a reality?
Well, I think the objective is not to force a transition to mobility. The cars, in my view, have to be better in every single way than the internal combustion engine. So to do that, you need to develop cars that have a similar range or longer than petrol cars that can charge in an amount of time that is not really an inconvenience. These cars need to be cheaper over the life of the vehicle, and ideally soon even cheaper to buy. And of course all the ecological impacts and positives as well. So I think you have many ways of getting there. The first one, which is what we are doing at Formula E really well, is to improve the efficiency of the cars. Every time we improve the efficiency of a powertrain by 1%, in our case, we tend to go 1% faster, but on road cars, you make them go 1% longer. So the higher the efficiency of the electric car, the longer it will go, the smaller the battery you can have in a car, the smaller the cost, etc. So that's the main target. And to give you an idea, a very finely tuned petrol car will have an engine that's around 30% efficient, but that's over a cycle. If you drive that car for short journeys when the engine is not even warm, it's way below that. It can be 10-20%. An electric motor in an electric car you can buy on the road will be at least 80% efficient. So you're at least 3 times better, which means that for any given distance driven, the electric car will use 3 times less energy. It doesn't matter where the energy comes from, it will still use far less energy. In our Formula E cars, we are 90+% from the battery to the wheel, which is obviously not easy to achieve, but the idea is that will trickle down to road cars. And then the second one is batteries, of course. The more energy you have in your battery, the further you can go, but you don't really want to carry around large, heavy batteries. So it's all about energy density, what we call it. And overall, in the industry over the last 10 years, on average, the energy density has been improving by about 8% on average, year on year. which is quite a lot. So we're now in a situation where 10 years ago, we could have never designed a car that's competitive. Now, the latest electric cars on the market pretty much compare favorably to the best petrol cars on the market, whether it's performance, range, and so on. And of course, the last benefit is fast charging. If you have a high-capacity battery with the latest cell chemistry that can take a lot of heat, you can charge at 200, 300 kilowatt, and in our case, soon probably more. And that's really a game changer. That means that you charge at home or in the office most of the time, but when you need to do a road trip, you can charge 15, 20 minutes. And you will carry on. I mean, I drive an electric car myself, and quite often the car is ready before me. So that's where we need to be.
That sounds amazing, and I think it brings us nicely to think about battery development in Formula E. Alberto, do you want to explain a bit about how the battery has developed over the 9 years of our lifetime and where you see it could go in the next generation?
Yeah. So, I totally agree with what Sylvain is saying. I think those are the three main factors in order to have a full adoption for the EV in the common people, in the people who is going to buy cars in the future. For Formula E, we just set the platform for those big manufacturers to showcase the different technologies. And in the case of the battery, even though it's a common battery for all the cars, we can say that from the first cycle of Formula E, what we call the Gen 1, during the first 4 years of history of the championship, we had to use 2 cars to finish the race. Only in 4 years, we helped develop the technology in a way in which in year 5, the drivers were using only 1 car. So to do the math, we basically in 4 years doubled the capacity of storage of energy into that battery in a lighter and less volumetric battery, which was a massive hit, a massive kind of a very well done thing, by all the different stakeholders that were part of it. For Gen 3, we touch based on what Sylvain was saying, ultra fast charging technologies that would allow you to stop, and eventually, he was saying 15-20 minutes, but I'm sure eventually we will be able to charge quicker. That takes you to refuel your car, and that's going to come. The technologies are there already. Now what we need is the source of energy to get to those levels. So definitely Formula E has been and will be a platform to improve all the technology that is related to the electric vehicles.
And so beyond the battery, are there any other elements of the car that you think have moved on a lot in that 9-year time that you want to call out as well?
Well, everything, but I think again what it has more impact than anything else obviously is the powertrain and the battery, but we can talk about the software, and eventually you would see brands like Nissan and their model, the Nissan Leaf, being I think at 15% more efficient due to the technology used at the track, the Formula E track. Mercedes or Porsche, being in this case 80% more efficient than the previous model. I mean, all those technologies that are being tested in Formula E are transferred to the public cars, and actually we have a way more efficient vehicles today in the streets thanks to Formula E.
Silva, have you found that as Envision? What have you learned from participating in Formula E that you've been able to take back into the more general technology?
Yeah, for sure. So what Alberto was saying, you have to keep in mind, not only we went from two car per driver to 1 car per driver, but we did that whilst going a lot faster as well. And the Gen 3 car is the same. So if you take that to the internal combustion world, something has to give. If you want to go faster, when here we are still able to improve on all metrics, which is again thanks to this energy and power density. So yeah, overall, what's really good about Formula E is the way the ecosystem works. If I had with anybody, a few of the promoter teams and manufacturers, to really be really focused on what we really want to focus our energy and resources on. So the fact that the bodywork is spec, means that we can focus all our energies on the powertrain and related software and high voltage circuits and so on, which have a direct impact on road cars. So it's really interesting. And then what's good, I think, in Formula E is the variety of the ecosystem. You have biggest car manufacturers in the championship. You have traditional racing teams that also embrace this new form of racing, and you have companies like Envision, who are green tech companies, but are also essential to making the whole thing work. Electric cars really become a complete no-brainer when they're powered by renewable energy. So it's about using the platform to promote the whole package.
And it feels almost premature, seeing as we're so newly into the life of the Gen 3 car, which was launched early this year. How do you want to see the platform continue to develop for Envision to get the most out of the sport?
Bigger, better, always, and going to more places. Like the recipe is perfect, really. It's about technology, but technology in itself only attracts a certain audience. What's really interesting is the mix of genuine technology innovation, but also mass market reach and passion. Only sports really can do that, right? Like you can go to any technical conferences. There are many great events out there, but they will have, by definition, a pretty limited audience. So we are here, we have this opportunity to talk to hundreds of millions of people literally every season, and it's up to us to do a good job. It's up to us to make it exciting. And, the technology is important, but that's why Alberto and his team are really focused on making the sport exciting, because if the sport is exciting, many people watch it, and then we amplify our reach.
Absolutely. A big focus of my role as well in the company. Formula E and motorsport more generally has been going through a huge growth of popularity recently. And as you say, sport is often seen as a driver for making societal change. Alberto, what does Formula E do to drive environmental sustainability and changing behaviours in our fan base?
Well, I think the fact that we are promoting the use of electric vehicles is the main factor. How do we do that? Because 12 years ago, it wasn't that obvious that there was going to be a full transformation into the electric vehicles, and that has happened way quicker than anybody expected. But by then, I remember having some discussion with people from motorsport championships, internal combustion engine motor championships, and they were a little bit like laughing about us, because we probably came with the idea. Now it has demonstrated no, but by then we even thought that it was a little bit too early, even to launch a championship like this one. But the adoption of electric vehicles had I might talk in the past already, had two main barriers, to overcome. And both were mentioned by Sylvain before. One was the price, and the other one was the range of the battery. I think with a platform like Formula E, we're actually helping to overcome those barriers. With the battery, we have talked already, and then the technology that we're using today, is helping the technology of the battery to be more and more efficient every day. And through efficiency, it comes, a longer range, as easy as that. On top of that, obviously, the different components of the battery that we are using today, they are completely different than the one that we used 8 years ago. And it's not even a decade. And we're already talking that the battery is probably 4 or 5 times more efficient than it was right at the beginning. And then the second one, the price, is we are promoting again a championship in which all the different manufacturers are taking part on. So back 8 years ago, you didn't have so many manufacturers who had that clear the agenda for the next 5 to 10 years in terms of electromobility. Today, there is no one single manufacturer who is not saying that by 2025, 2030, combustion will be more or less over, and it will give the floor to the electric brothers, and when we talk about electric cars, we're talking about an electric motor. It doesn't really matter where is the source of energy that is sourcing the power to those motors, and we can talk about batteries, we can talk about hydrogen, we can talk about, aeolic, we can talk about solar, we can talk about so many other different sources of energies, but all of them are within, our technology, the electric technology and the technology used in Formula E. So yeah, definitely promoting our championship is the best thing we can do in order to basically to become bigger and bigger and bigger, and the people be more have a better decision about what car needs to buy in the next one. No?
Yeah, more and more influence. And then beyond the EVs and the technology itself, Formula E is obviously very active in promoting its net zero carbon commitment and drawing attention to the climate crisis. So what are the other examples that Formula E is doing that, away from the EVs that try and influence the behaviours and the attitudes of people who watch the product?
Well, I think just to start with the car, and I think you mentioned at the beginning, a car that is, just the production of this chassis is 10%, is reducing 10% the CO2 emissions. The tires, which are 26% coming from fully recycled tires, and everything we do at heart with in order to become more and more efficient, more and more using recyclable sources. But outside the track, we, at the end, and you said it before as well, there is certain CO2 emissions that we cannot avoid. We are a global championship, we travel the world, and this is where we need to become more and more efficient every day, and then whatever is left is when we offset. And on that offset, we are actively working with different partners around the world and using, again, renewable farms. We have farms that are using renewable energy or producing renewable energy, and with that we offset all the carbon that we emit, basically.
Great, thank you. So when we were wandering around the Hyderabad e-motor show earlier, I just wanted to know if there was anything that caught your eye as being a particularly exciting piece of innovation or technology.
Yeah, what I love here is actually the variety of scope of e-mobility, right? E-mobility is not just cars, of course. On one hand, trucks. It was believed for a while that long-distance trucks will have to be hydrogen, but actually it's proven it's not the case. And you're going to see pretty soon, I think, a raft of heavy-duty electric trucks. And then on the other end of the scale here, you have so many two-wheelers and three-wheelers here, which are absolutely essential to electric mobility because obviously they're much lighter than an electric car, but they are still equally as efficient. But obviously you use far less energy again per mile traveled. So it's all about reducing that amount of energy needed. Because the least amount of energy we use, the easier it will be to get it sourced from renewable energy. We'll get there eventually, but we don't want to get there in 100 years' time. We want to get there in 20 years' time. So any car, any vehicle of any form that's moved and proposed by electric technology is doing its bit by using less energy. So it's really great to see that, and in mass volume as well. Technology is one thing, where Formula is obviously the pinnacle. These cars are prototypes, basically. But it's all about scaling. And so it's all about making millions of them as quickly as possible. And that's what will have a big impact.
Great. Just remind the audience that if you do have any questions, I'm going to ask one more, but then we'd love to hear from what you think after one more question. So just throwing it forward 5 years to the future, Alberto, what's your ambition for where Formula E is and what Formula E looks like in 5 years' time?
Well, we were born to have an impact on the electric vehicles industry, and we're halfway there. Not even halfway there. I mean, there is a lot to do. We are very proud of what we have done, but there is a lot to do, and definitely we need to be raising in these big cities in the world to raise the awareness. About these cars are really cool. They're really fast, and that way we can have an impact on the younger generations, those who are going to decide to hopefully buy an electric car in the next 4 to 5 to 6 years. So raising in the biggest cities of the world, raising awareness about the big challenge that we are all facing with the climate change, and also so that will at the end have that impact on these young buyers, which is what we really want. At the end, it's very easy. We want the whole world to be driving electric.
That's your soundbite, love it. And Sylvain, for you, what are your hopes for the global electrification journey in the next 5 years? Are you optimistic? I hope so.
Yeah, very more than ever. But you said earlier the transition is happening quicker than planned, and it's true, and it's a mix of the technology. You have all from the battery cell manufacturers have invested so much money in R&D, and it's now, we're getting the dividends of that. And then obviously the OEMs, the car manufacturers are also ramping up. You can see most of them pretty much spending the entirety of their R&D budgets on electric vehicles, which obviously is going to accelerate that a lot. So, 5 years from now, it's pretty much when most cities and countries have committed they'll be fully electric. So, or just about. So the next 5 years are going to be really exciting on again, that transition from track to road. And many things we do here, like super high voltage, almost 1,000 volts, super high regenerative braking. All these things are making their way down. So it's going to be exciting. And then for us, it's going to be interesting, right? When most cars on the road are electric, what should we be, right? And you want the cars to be, and I believe you want the cars to be you want the sport to be so aspirational, and you want the cars to aspire for all generations, but especially the younger generations, to look at these cars the way probably we looked at Formula One cars, 30, 40 years ago. And saying these cars are just the best, they're the fastest, they're the most exciting, and then that will trigger a brand new generation that will just not even think about internal combustion engine. For them, the world is electric, and that's it. So I think our job is to get them excited, and then the rest will follow, I think, quite naturally.
Love it. Thank you. So we're going to give the opportunity now for anyone in the audience, if you have any questions to ask to Alberto or Silva, or me, but I assume not. Do we have any audience mics? Or
Nacho, you want to ask something? Or? It's good that we feel it. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, hi. I'm Aditya. I'm from the Maharaja group. My question is to anyone on the panel, really. Actually, Harry asked something similar what I was about to ask. In which direction do you see the battery technology evolving about 5 to 10 years in the future for Formula E specifically, considering the many new technological breakthroughs in the sector?
Let me answer that in a non-technical way at all, because we have an engineer here. So I think I said it before. I think it's so important to reckon that there are several technologies that could apply to an electric motor. Where is the world going to go? I think that's the 1 million question today, and the people doesn't even realize that there are so many different technologies that we could that could source the energy for the electric motors. But I see in the short term commitment with batteries, full commitment from different manufacturers and where the world is going to come in the short term. Midterm, I mean, we could be talking about graphene, we could be talking about hydrogen, we could be talking about so many other things that at the moment they don't seem like a short-term solution, but they could easily become. I'm sorry not to be answering your question, but trust me, I think nobody knows. Maybe he tells me I'm wrong.
Yeah, a quick one. On batteries specifically, of course, you have solid-state batteries and graphene and these chemistries that are probably 5-10 years away. As you said, they are working at the kind of the cell level in the lab. They're working, making it a 50 kilowatt-hour pack that's reliable is another. But that's coming, which is really exciting. So that will, commit us to these technologies. Longer term, I hope we'll always stick to whatever's best. So do we know? I guess not. At the moment, it's a no-brainer, right? Nothing gets.
I wouldn't be here if I knew it. So
at the moment, as I said earlier, nothing gets even close to the efficiency of a battery electric vehicle, right? The problem with hydrogen is the fuel cell losses, right? So, but maybe they will get solved. Who knows? But what's good is that short term, the technology of batteries is evolving so rapidly that we can do some pretty amazing things with these race cars. And then longer term, we'll come back and you can ask again.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Maybe time for one or two more? Well, I'll ask one in the meantime. We'll send a mic to you and I'll ask one first. So we have the race this weekend. Be good to hear some predictions or what you would like to see, maybe. You start with Alberto and that, so I can get his political answer correct.
I'm sure Silvan will have a very good prediction for himself. But me as a promoter, we cannot show obviously any favorite team or competitor. But obviously we are in India, and I would love, an Indian team to be winning this weekend. Same way as I will wish you guys to win in London, no problem. But hopefully Mahindra or even Jaguar, as part of the TCS group or the Tata Consulting Group, it will be fantastic for them to celebrate at home.
Silva?
Yeah. Predictions are notoriously dangerous in the Formula E, and even one of us can get it wrong many times. So, yeah, of course, I want my team to do well. But as you know, the beauty of Formula E is that it's so close and so competitive. Like literally a tenth or two of a second is the difference between the front of the grid and the back of the grid. There's pretty much no other motorsport like that. So it comes down to us, the cars, and the drivers. Whichever driver comes up with a perfect qualifying lap will have obviously a great start.
Good answer. Do we have a question from the audience? Yeah, great.
Yeah. I think this gets routed more to Sylvain. Sylvain, if I can say it from a perspective, say F1 races generally have...
Sorry, do you mind holding the mic a little closer to mouth? Thank you.
Is it better now?
Okay.
Yeah. So I was trying to refer from the context of F1 races, where in F1 races, FIA tries to put in a lot of details in terms of restrictions. Say what kind of tires should they use, so that everyone gets maybe a right competition. Right? They define the kind of cars, they define the kind of tires that they should use, the actual limitations, so that everyone actually are racing in a similar context. In Formula E's perspective, say in the short term, we are looking at the battery packs as immediate solution to run the races. But eventually, do we have these kind of limitations? Right now, what is there in terms of the strategic limitations that every player has to go through, be it body or design of the tire, and eventually, do we have some leverages in terms of the battery packs that they use, like fuel cells, being discussed now. Hydrogen fuel cells are being seen as an alternate in terms of in comparison to the lithium-ion batteries. So, how does this work as on today?
So I think the question was about the balance between the number of parts that we allow teams and manufacturers to develop versus spec parts provided by Formula E, and how that relates into the strategy that the teams have on the race day.
Yeah, good question. I think it's a bit on what I alluded to earlier, which is Formula E is really all about accelerating the innovation on the technology that matters, technology that makes a difference. So we could spend a lot of money on aerodynamics. It will make the race cars go faster. It will have no positive impact on society. So we focus on what matters, which is powertrain efficiency, high voltage software, low voltage, converters, batteries, of course, all the things that really will make a difference. And as you can see, it's still extremely interesting for the teams and manufacturers involved, because even though we're not designing the whole car, the freedom we have in the scope that we are able to design is much greater than any other motorsport. If you look at the rule book of Formula One, whoever is winning in Formula One is whoever read the regulations the best and was the cleverest, which is good. Here in Formula E, you look at the regulations for the powertrain, there's very few limitations. You can be a lot more creative. So that's what really makes the engineers and the teams and the manufacturers really excited. In the future, we'll see how that evolves. Maybe the scope will be greater. We'll see how that evolves. It's a balance between cost, return on investment, and technology. But at the moment, there's so many rewards, so many technology improvements we're achieving, that the recipe is really working.
Great. Well then, unless we have any other questions from... one more question from the audience, and then I think that will be that.
Hi. Around 2 to 3 months ago, when the Indian Racing League happened here, the general impression of the track was that it's not very safe. But then the drivers who drove on the track told us that, over social media, they said that the track is pretty safe. But what are your impressions about the track?
Well, the track that we're going to show on Saturday is one of the most fast tracks that we have ever done in Formula E. And that, with the walls being so close, is gonna be very attractive and very sexy to watch. I think we're gonna have one of the most remarkable races that we have ever done. Frankly, having been here like for 4, 5, 6 times, you know, and having had the flexibility from the Telangana government, you know, to modify the area almost the way we wanted in order to have a very exciting race. And we will see it on Saturday, but I expect a fantastic race to happen here. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much to Sujay for the opening address, to Alberto from Formula E, and Silva and Felipe from Envision Racing. Please show your appreciation.
Thank you to you, Harry.
Thank you.